YouTube, the NBA All-Star rosters have officially been announced for the 2025 NBA All-Star Weekend, and in this video, I want to go over, kind of talk about every player that's been selected this season, give a little, context and info on their season and stuff like that, and at the end of the video, we'll talk about some snubs and people who I think, probably could have made it, but at the end of the day, I do want this video to be about kind of celebrating these players and their season so far, and I do really believe this season in particular, the NBA has got it pretty good. I do want to get that out of the way. I think everybody on here deserves it, but at the end we'll do some snubs, and we'll start in the Eastern Conference with the starters, and then we'll go to the West starters, and then reserves, East and West. And so we're going to start with Giannis Antetokounmpo. He has to be in line for an MVP this season. Definitely if the season ended today, he'd be probably top 3 in MVP voting. He should be. It's, Giannis, right? He is having such a amazing season, even for his standards. I think, he definitely could win MVP. The Bucks have been playing much better, starting to look like themselves again. At the time of recording this, they are 4th in the Eastern Conference with a 26-20 record. They haven't been perfect, and their season has been a little up and down, but Giannis, you can certainly not blame Giannis for that because he's been in prime Giannis form. Definitely probably the second best player in the NBA. 32, 12 and 6. That is just a Giannis type of season on great defense and versatile defense. And so you have to say he is clearly, has to be leading in the East voting, which I believe he was. And so easy choice for Giannis. You know what I mean? Just a great season all around for him. And like I said, should be an NBA finalist this season. Now for the point guard, we have Jalen Brunson, another player who's just, at the top of his game, right? This is a top 15 or 20 player in the league, probably top 15, I'd say. Top 3 point guard or so in the league, 26 points, 8 assists, and 3 rebounds per game on great efficiency. He has the Knicks playing awesome right now, 3rd in the conference in the East, and he is the catalyst for that offense. He is what makes that team go, from a leadership perspective and from an offensive perspective, running the point guard. And, his ability to close games has been, what we would expect from him this season. Just so clutch, so competitive, with such heart and effort that you're going to see from him every night. It's such a great season, and the efficiency is what really stands out to me for Brunson. These stats don't have that here, but basically talked about the averages, but Brunson is shooting 49 from the field, 41 from 3 on 6 attempts per game, and 82 from the line on 7 attempts per game. Great offensive season for Brunson. Well-deserved all-star starter selection. Now, Donovan Mitchell, obviously he has the Cavs, as the best player on that team. He is leading the Cavs to the best record in the East. It's really not even that close. And I'm actually really happy given his, just overall stats, 24, 5 and 4. It's not necessarily a, crazy Luka Doncic or, SGA or Jokic type stat production, but the fact that they had him in the starters just shows how much, the voting system has gotten better, because you could really say there's almost no one that deserves it more to be a starter in the Eastern Conference. And I think in years past, I'm not so sure the fan voting would have necessarily got him there. And so the NBA really got it right on this one. At 39-9 are the Cavaliers right now, and Donovan Mitchell leading that team to that, amazing record. Like I said, the voting system has gotten much better, and I'm so happy Donovan Mitchell. That was one that I was really hoping, for the starters would be there, because no one deserves it more than him. And actually, they have 3 Cavs in this Eastern Conference, all-star roster, and so that is awesome to see, because the Cavs players definitely deserve it. We'll talk about the other 2 in a minute, but great, probably the best season of his career so far, even if not just, because of the stats, but his impact on winning is so monumental, and definitely deserves to be the starter. Jayson Tatum, this is another great season from him. The Celtics have been a little bit forgotten about as far as teams that I think could be in contention for the best team in the league. I talked about this in a different video just recently, but I still think the Celtics, when they are healthy and locked in and playing their best, are coasting a little bit this season, but when they want it and they go after it, I still think they're as good as anyone in the league, if not the best team in the league. And Jayson Tatum, clearly the best player on that team. 27, 6 and 9, great season, what we would expect from a superstar of Jayson Tatum's caliber. And Karl-Anthony Towns, again, another player that I've talked about a ton on this channel. Such a dominant year from him for the Knicks. This is his best season in the league. There's no question about it. No one has been more efficient other than maybe Jokic in the entire league from all 3 levels. He's averaging 25 points per game, 14 rebounds, and 3 assists on great efficiency. He's having an all NBA first team or second team caliber season, best season of his career. He has broken broke out into superstardom. The efficiency is mind-blowing: 54 from the field, 42% from 3 on 5 attempts per game, and 84% from the free throw line. This is just a masterclass what you're seeing from him night to night, and the impact that he's had on the Knicks offensively cannot be understated. So those are the East starters. For the West starters, Steph Curry, leading the voting. He's just always going to get here because of the fan vote. Not to say that he hasn't had a good season and he doesn't deserve it. I do think he deserves to be an all-star. This is one where I'm kind of, I'm not so sure he should be an all-star starter at the point guard position when you have other guards like Anthony Edwards in the mix to be a starting guard. But either way, he deserves to be on the team in my opinion. Maybe just not the highest voted starter, but still a really great Curry year. You know what I mean? 22 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds. We've talked about with the Warriors how he hasn't had to do as much heavy lifting offensively because other guys are stepping up. They're running much more of a share the basketball system this year, and it's working really well for him. But basically, Coach Kerr is just doing a really good job of managing his load offensively, and I think that's a really good thing. But again, still deserves to be in the all-star roster. Just not sure he should be a starter. Now, Kevin Durant absolutely should be. The year that he had last year was super underrated in my opinion. Doesn't get talked about enough how good he was for the Suns last year, and this year is basically the same thing. You are getting some of the best efficiency in the league offensively from KD, still a good defender, and still puts a lot of effort in on that end of the floor, and he is the best offensive player as well. I don't think you can even really argue that. KD averaging 27, 6, and 4 on 53 from the field, 41 from 3, and 83% from the free throw line. It's kind of unfortunate for him that the Suns haven't been as good as maybe we expected. They're still a pretty good team, definitely gonna be in the hunt for a playoff spot. They're 25 and 22 in the West, which is actually a good record in the Western Conference, but he's had a great season, deserves to be a starter in my opinion. Now, SGA, this is another guy along with Giannis that I think should be in top 3 NBA finalist conversation for the MVP. He, honestly could win it, and I think there's a good case for it. He has as good of a case as anyone. Thunder, in my opinion, have been the best regular season team thus far throughout the season. In the Western Conference, they're 37-9, which is just unbelievable. They're dominating teams almost every day. He's averaging 33, 6, and 5 with, exceptional defensive production as well, averaging 2 steals and a block per game, 53% from the field. We just don't talk about enough how good he is from that mid-range and finishing area, inside the arc for a point guard. He's basically a combo guard, but really a point guard, the way they use him in the Thunder system, and to be, averaging 22 field goal attempts per game and 53% from the field from a point guard or a combo guard is just wild. He's so unbelievable offensively, so efficient, and I think he should, realistically be top 2 in MVP voting. 35% from 3 on 6 attempts. Take a little bit more threes this year. 35 is okay, but he takes difficult shots, and he's really knocking them down from the line. 90% from the free throw line on it, and almost 9 attempts per game. SGA, he's certainly the best player on probably the best team, right? And so he should, no question, there's no debate about it. He has to be in the starters. I'm actually surprised he wasn't top 2 in voting really for the All-Star game. LeBron, 24, 9, and 8 this season on really good efficiency for him as well, shooting the 3-ball well this season, but not really scoring as much, not being as assertive offensively. Certainly, 9 assists is a little bit more than we're used to of recent years for LeBron. I think you're starting, it's really sad for me because I'm a huge LeBron fan. I just think you're starting to see a little bit of a, him losing a few steps here and not being able to control the game at that level that he once was, even just from the last few years. I think you're seeing a little bit of a dip in his play this season. The stats might not indicate it, but if you watch the games, you know what I'm talking about. He's not finishing as well. Doesn't seem to have, that all-time great explosiveness that he used to. But again, still a top 15 or so player in the league. But again, I think you're starting to see him dip a little bit from maybe 7th or 6th best player in the league, maybe down somewhere toward, 10 to 15 kind of range. And that's still great. That especially at his age of 40, it's unheard of and it's all-time great. And what he's able to do, from, scoring on all 3 levels to, being basically one of the best passers in the league, if not the best. Highest basketball IQ I've ever seen. Lakers actually doing pretty well, 27 and 19. Definitely deserves to be an all-star. I think there's a case that he should be a starter. He obviously is, but I think, you can make a case for some other front court members. Trying to be unbiased here about LeBron, but again, statistically, he's having a great year and he's arguably the best player. I think it's kind of a 1A, 1B with him for Anthony Davis as well. Arguably the best player on the 5th seed in the West. With those stats, definitely deserves to be an all-star. Nikola Jokic, this is the guy I might vote for MVP. It's either him or Shai, in my opinion. Giannis definitely will get votes and should get votes with the year he's had, but his team just isn't as good as you'd like for an MVP to be. But Jokic, 30-point triple-double on all-world efficiency. He's currently shooting, I believe, the league best in 3-point percentage, which for him is crazy because he's always been a good three-point shooter, especially for the position, but you know, it's a different level this year. He's shooting 48% from the three-point line on 4 attempts per game, also shooting 57% from the field and 81% from the line. He's actually third in the league in scoring, which you don't usually expect for Jokic. You expect about 25 points per game throughout his career, but you know, this year he has been even better than he was offensively throughout his career, which you didn't think was possible for him. But you know, career high in points per game, career high in assists per game at this point, and nearly career high in rebounds, but certainly career high in three-point shooting. This guy never fails to amaze me. I just watched him last night, you know, basically beat my Sixers single-handedly in that fourth quarter, hit a couple super clutch shots, and you know, really took over that game towards the end. It's just, we've never seen someone so efficient in the way that he is, and so, you know, obviously he deserves to be the starting center for the All-Star team, no question about it. Nuggets also kind of fighting for that playoff positioning. I believe they are fourth right now in the West. Let me see. Yeah, they're fourth in the West with a 29-19 record, which is fantastic for the West, but I will say it still feels like they could be better, which is kind of weird to say. But for the East reserves, Jaylen Brown, another great year, obviously coming off that finals MVP performance, and 23 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists on, you know, maybe probably the second best team in the East, you know, as far as record wise. And just if we're going off like regular season performance so far, they are the second best team in the East, but that's a good statistical year. Obviously him and Tatum do a lot on defense as well, you know, not shooting the three ball particularly well from beyond the arc this year, but again, Jaylen Brown's just such a great two-way player, and so certainly with these stats and his team success, he deserves to be for the reserves. I would have had him as well. Now Pascal Siakam, this is a kind of an interesting one. He's been really good this year, really efficient as well, and the Pacers are kind of a disappointment, I guess you could say. They're fifth in the East in record with 26-20, but I personally thought they'd be better. They've been a little bit all over the place. I know they've had some injuries and stuff like that, but who hasn't, right? But Pascal is the best player on the Pacers this season. It's really not even a question. He's shooting the ball really efficiently, especially for him. You know, we don't necessarily see him as the best three-point shooter throughout his career, but with the Pacers, actually, the last 2 years, he shot the ball really well from three, you know, averaging 21 points per game, 7 rebounds, 4 assists on, you know, versatile defense, and just leading the Pacers to a playoff record. And again, being the best player on that team, you know, really just deserves to be here. You know, he's had that type of year. Darius Garland, I'm super happy he made it. He certainly deserved it. This will be his second All-Star appearance, 22 points, 7 assists, and basically being 1A, 1B offensively with Donovan Mitchell in this amazing Cavaliers offense. He is the lead playmaker as well, but he's just been so good in that role, you know, a facilitator for the Cavs. They're like the best passing team in the league, and he's a big part of that. You know, how he gets into the paint almost anytime he wants and kicks an open shooter or finishes. Explosive three-point shooting is crazy. You know, he could shoot it from anywhere, and he's just such an efficient guy at getting to where he wants to. He's such a great facilitator and lead playmaker. Everyone on the Cavs that's here deserves to be here, and Garland no exception. Potentially the second best, certainly the second best offensive player on the best team in the East, probably second best team in the league throughout the regular season. So certainly, you know, much praise there for Garland. Happy he's made it back to the All-Star game. Cade Cunningham, what a great year statistically, and leading his team to the 6th seed right now at the time of recording this for the Pistons, who have completely turned their team around. You know, 14 wins last season. All of a sudden they are playing way above, I think, a lot of people's expectations, including myself. I thought it was possible that they'd be this good, but I gave it a small chance. They're currently 500, 24-24 right now, but Cade, undoubtedly the lone star and, you know, maybe even superstar at this point for the Pistons. And what a year he's had. If you just look at this, 25, 9 assists and 6 rebounds per game. He's averaging pretty much a steal and a block. And, you know, the Pistons, we don't talk about this, but they really don't have a lot of playmaking on this team outside of Cade. Ivy's really stepped his game up this year. He's been awesome, but Cade is like the real point guard on this team and legit playmaker, and he's doing such a great job. He's also been really efficient, especially for him. 46 from the field on 21 attempts is great, and then 36% from 3 on 6 attempts, and he's getting to the line more. Just an awesome year from Cade. This is the type of year we've really been expecting from Cade as NBA fans, I think, and he's delivering big time, not only elevating his team, which is the most important thing, but elevating pretty much every statistical category, and just the way he's playing it looks like a different player. I'm really happy for him as a fan. Evan Mobley, one of the most dynamic defenders in the league, you know, could be up for DPOY once again as a finalist, but 18 points per game. He's been much better and much more aggressive and assertive offensively. He's been more efficient. He's been just everything we'd hoped he'd be. This is really kind of his breakout year. 18 points per game, 9 rebounds, but he's shooting the 3 actually really well. That was kind of the whole thing for him offensively. If he could knock down a consistent 3 ball, doesn't have to be at super high volume, but he's just got to be able to space the floor for Allen if they're going to play together, and he's done that so incredibly well. You know, again, one of the best defenders in the league as well, so you're getting all-world defense with this production offensively, but he's shooting 39% from 3 on 3 attempts per game, and that just opens up so much for the Cavs offense. It's not even funny, and the way he's able to finish around the rim with that explosive athleticism is amazing. 57% from the field. He's just such a great two-way player, and certainly like the anchor of this Cavs defense. Definitely deserves to be in the All-Star game, and I'm happy for him for his first All-Star appearance. Now, Damian Lillard has had a great year offensively. Again, certainly not his or Giannis's fault, in my opinion, that the Bucks are where they are right now. Again, they're 4th in the East, which isn't bad, but 26 and 20, I think you just expect a little more out of this roster and this unit. But Dame's had a great year offensively, you know, especially statistically, and being the 1B to Giannis, and he's shooting really well this year. 38% from 3 on 9 attempts per game, and 45% from the field is actually, you know, one of the best seasons he's had from the field. And obviously you're going to get a ton of free throw attempts from Dame, shooting a career high 92.4% from the line on 7 attempts per game. He's never going to miss, and so he's just been so great for the Bucks. 100% deserves to be a reserve guard. Now, Tyler Herro, I can't say enough good things about his season. He has elevated his game into stardom, right? He was like kind of a fringe star offensively throughout his career. He is a star. He's absolutely a star in this league. He has been, you know, maybe the best player on the Heat this entire year, if you consider all the Jimmy Butler stuff. And, you know, Bam is a great player, one of the best centers in the league. But I just think if you look at the season in as a whole for the Heat, I think Tyler Herro could be considered the Heat's MVP. And again, elevating his playmaking a ton. This is a guy that was primarily a shoot first type of guard, you know, kind of a 2-guard combo guard, right, who could handle. But this is a playmaker. This is a lead guard on this team, and he's having the Heat in a playoff contention at the 7th seed right now with a 23-23 record, and he is this team's offensive catalyst. I mean, and how efficient he's been, not to mention. I mean, he could score on all 3 levels, obviously, but one of the best shooters in the league this season. You know, 47% from the field and 40% from 3 on 10 attempts per game. That's just crazy. And he's taking pull-ups, he's taking deep pull-ups, you know, from half court at times. Like he's got that range to him. But no question, I'm actually really happy he made it, because I think he's been one of the better offensive guards in the league this year, and certainly deserves all of this recognition and elevating his game in so many different areas, but primarily the playmaking. He's been awesome as the Heat's lead playmaker, especially with all the noise about Jimmy Butler. He's just had a great year, and I'm happy for him. Head coach Kenny Atkinson, obviously he is the coach of the team with the best record, so he's going to make it. What a job he's done in Cleveland. I think we just have to talk about that for a second. Turning this team into a really good team with, you know, maybe conference finals aspirations at times, into a legitimate finals contender this season, maybe even, you know, potentially up there with Boston this year as the favorite. And so you have to just be absolutely thrilled if you were a Cleveland Cavaliers fan. Now, as far as the West, we have Anthony Edwards. I think he should have been a starter, especially with the year he's had, you know, being the Timberwolves, you know, basically go-to guy. You know, we've seen that in the past, but he has become one of the better shooters in the league this year. He's taking way more threes because he has to, because that's what the offense calls for, because of Karl-Anthony Towns leaving. I didn't think he was capable of this type of shooting, but if you look at the numbers, I mean, he is just putting on a clinic there in Minnesota. Currently the 7th best record in the West with a 27-21. But, you know, he's been basically, you know, the lead playmaker at times. He's been a great defender when he needs to be. He's one of the best perimeter one-on-one defenders when he wants to be. But he has just carried this team. You know, there's no question about it. And 42% from 3 on 10 attempts per game. Like we talk about Tyler Herro, that's even better numbers than Tyler Herro. I can't speak enough about how he's led this team and carried this team. We're seeing a different Anthony Edwards this year, and unfortunately it hasn't showed up in the win column. But I just think that's the little bit of the Timberwolves mismanagement of their roster and stuff like that. And so I think he should have been a starter. No slight to Curry, one of the all-time greats, maybe top 10 all-time players, but Ant just deserves to be a starter this year, in my opinion. Now, Anthony Davis, what another great year. He's actually managed to stay healthy the last few years pretty well. 26, 12, and 3 on, you know, DPOY type of defense for the Lakers. Another guy that just carries so much of the burden offensively and defensively. Top 10 player in the league, in my opinion, when he's engaged and focused on everything, which he's been much better at the last few years of staying more consistent. I just think his impact on both ends of the floor has been as good as you could possibly want for him. And so no question, I think he, you know, arguably could have been a starter over LeBron, but that's just, you know, kind of preference at that point. James Harden, you know, what he's done to be able to lead the Clippers to much better status than we, you know, a lot of people thought. Not me though. I said they'd be good, and I was the only person in the world who said that. Have to give myself some credit there. If you know, you know. Clippers Deep Dive 2025, most viewed video on the entire channel. But the Clippers, they're in the playoff mix, 28-20. Most of the games without Kawhi Leonard, and the games he has been there for, he hasn't been Kawhi Leonard, right? And so Harden, best player on the team, not exactly the type of efficiency we're used to see from Harden. He's just not shooting that well, but he is, running this offense as a Harden offense should be run. 22 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds per game, steal and a half, and almost a block. And obviously you're going to get 89 from the line, but just efficiency hasn't been great. And so, yeah, I think he definitely deserves to be in conversation for All-Star. I'm not mad that he made it at all. Someone from the Clippers should have, but we'll get into that in the snub section. Now, Jaren Jackson Jr., great bounce back year for him. Last season, they had him playing a lot of center. This season, he brings Zach Edey in. He's got his teammates back healthy around him, and that's a big deal for him. And he has really paid off. A lot of people were worried about that contract, man, and he has just been awesome on both ends, looking like himself again. The Grizzlies, one of the best teams in the league, 32-16. I did not think they were going to be that dominant this year, but Triple J's been the Grizzlies' best player and most consistent player this entire season. Morant's been out at times, and he's played great as well, but he's just been out of the lineup a lot of times. Desmond Bane he's really starting to come on now, but early in the season struggled a little bit. He's also dealt with injuries, but Triple J has been the one constant for this team who has continuously been there and produced on both ends of the floor. Been pretty efficient as well. You have to have him in the All-Star game. It's been the best, in my opinion, the most consistent MVP player for the Grizzlies, who are the third best team in the West. Alperen Sengun, another guy I was really hoping who would make it. Totally deserves it. Second best record in the Western Conference for the Rockets, and he's the best player on the team. 19 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. He's a star player, one of the best centers in the league, one of the best offensive big men we've seen in a long time, and another guy that's just super efficient. Honestly, has been much better defensively than he gets credit for and has been throughout his career, but he is the guy that makes this team go. I mean, especially offensively, just the IQ on this guy is crazy. 19 points, about 10.5 rebounds, and 5 assists with a 1.3 steals and 0.8 blocks on 49% from the field. Like to see him shoot a little bit better from the outside, but I'm nitpicking. He's just been so great, and he's the leader of this team, and it totally deserves to be there given how good they are, and he has been the catalyst for that, in my opinion. They're a deep team, but he's the guy on that team. Now, J-Dub, another player I think totally deserved it, and I was hoping would make it, because you kind of just never know with the All-Stars. Sometimes you get these guys on really good teams that don't have numbers that are eye-popping or flashy or anything like that, and you just really hope they make it because how much they do for their team. What a two-way player Jalen Williams, J-Dub, has become. Second best player on the best team in the NBA, in my opinion, throughout the regular season so far, and 21, 6, and 5. Typical Swiss Army knife, does everything really well. He might not be a superstar, but he is the perfect complementary number 2 player behind your MVP candidate SGA, and I believe if Chet Holmgren was healthy, he would have made the All-Star game too. But the way the Thunder are playing, it cannot be understated how much J-Dub has to do with that. I mean, another player that's just so efficient on both ends of the floor, makes plays when the team needs him. Another guy with great defensive production, 1.8 steals and 0.8 blocks. He doesn't turn the ball over much. He's got a great ratio. He's been a much better playmaker than I thought he'd be capable of. Not shooting great from the outside, but that can be fixed. He's just the perfect number 2, right? And he is the Swiss Army knife, does everything well. Scores on all 3 levels, can play make for others, can create for himself when he needs to, has a ton of bag to him, great finisher, great athlete, and great defensive player as well. Just awesome year from him, and I just love the player. I really do. And Wemby, who I thought would be a starter, if I'm being honest with you guys. I either thought it was gonna be AD or Wemby, but it turned out to be LeBron and KD at this spot. I guess you couldn't have 2 centers, but listen, with the year Wemby has had, okay, I personally think he is, at the back end of the top 10 in players in the NBA, in the world, right? He's one of the best. You can't tell me there are 15 or 16 players better than Victor Wembanyama in the NBA. The Spurs are hanging around right there around the 10 seed for the play-in spot. They're going to be close by the end of the year. I really hope they can make it because they're just so fun to root for and watch. And especially Wemby, 25 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, and 4 blocks per game. He should be, I think he has a case for DPOY, certainly, for the rim protection, for the, basically, if he's just on the floor, you're just not going to get much at the rim. You don't even try it as much, and you just get totally scared as a ball handler. But anyways, 36% from 3, which is league average, but on 9 attempts per game, and he's taking deep ones. He's taking it off the dribble this year. Like the percentage is actually really great when you factor in 1, his position, and 2, the level of spacing he provides off the ball, and just 3, how difficult the shots are in general. It's actually a really good percentage, but 47% from the field and 85% from the line. He's just been so dominant on every aspect of the game. I think he's one of the 12 or so best players in the league. And I actually, again, again, with the popularity he has, I thought he'd be a starter, but either way, deserved to make it. Welcome to the All-Star team, Victor Wembanyama, and head coach Mark Daigneault, who I think if you're going to say that he's not maybe the best coach in the league the last 2 seasons, it'd be a tough argument not to make. Certainly there's a lot of great coaches. I think Joe Mazzulla is up there for sure. Eric Spoelstra, in my opinion, is a top 3 coach in the league, but Mark Daigneault, I just feel like no one's done more than him. You could say winning the finals. I get what you're saying, but this year I do think the playoff success will translate, but Mark Daigneault, such a great job he's done with this team in the OKC Thunder, and that is the All-Star roster. Right now, let's get into the snubs. I only have a few for each conference, but for the East, I have to start as a Sixers fan with Tyrese Maxey, of course. He's just my guy. I do think he should have been in the conversation for one of these spots, but I'm not mad at all at anyone who made it. I actually think, looking at the list, I think a lot of these guys have a little bit just a better case than he does. He has been the Sixers MVP. They're not very good. You know what I mean? Like, they have been a pretty bad team over the course of the year. But Maxey, again, another guy that's just done so much for the team. The one constant that has been there, that has been, especially recently, performing at an all-star team MVP level, elevating the Sixers. When Paul George is not playing like himself and out of the lineup a lot, Joel Embiid has barely played this season. Role players constantly hurt. Half our team's been hurt for the last 4 weeks. And so Maxey has just come in and dropped 30 piece after 30 piece on great efficiency. Also a really much improved defender this year. He's actually been really good, and he's close to the league lead in steals per game. He's just been so good, and I love him. He's my favorite player, but at the end of the day, I get it. Not everyone you love can make it. And I actually think Tyler Herro and, maybe Damian Lillard probably are better choices. I don't think you could say that he 100% it was a snub that he didn't make it over these guys. I'm not mad at it at all, but I just love Maxey from a fan's perspective. Now, a couple other guards. The East is just stacked with guards. We have to talk about Trae Young, how great he's been this year. Typical Trae Young production. I'll read you his stats. I say typical Trae Young production, but it's crazy how he's been able to do this for so long. Hasn't been scoring as much as years past, but 23 points per game, 11 assists. Hasn't been very efficient. That's what you're going to get from Trae Young, but at the end of the day, he's just been arguably the best playmaker in the league this year, and still provides a lot of that offensive flair that he usually does as far as scoring goes. But the Hawks are decent. They're a 9 seed, and he's been the best player on that team. So definitely up for debate whether or not he should be in it. And then LaMelo Ball, who I actually think is like the breakout player of the year, arguably. And he, again, Hornets are really bad. 12-33. He's only played 31 games as well, but still the year he's had 28 points per game, 7 assists, 5 rebounds. And I know a lot of people wanted LaMelo to make it just because he's just so fun to watch, and he'd be awesome in the All-Star again, but 42% from the field, 34% from again, it's hard to put a guy who is on a 12-win team in the All-Star, and that's, I guess, kind of their thinking, and I can totally understand that. And so I'm not mad at any of these snubs. I do think as far as, front court for the Eastern Conference, you have guys like Jarrett Allen, who had a case, I believe, especially being on the Cavs, who are that good this season. He's averaging 14 and 10 on 70% from the field, and so on really good defense as well. Someone like OG Anunoby or Mikal Bridges, I think, have a case, especially Anunoby with his defense this year, and how good the Knicks have been. Those two guys are definitely in contention. And then obviously, if this didn't happen the way it did, Paolo and Franz Wagner both would have made it, arguably starters. I think Franz Wagner is another player that has been one of the breakout players of the year, but he's only played 29 games, and so I get it. And Pascal is a great replacement. You're going to have Evan Mobley, Jaylen Brown. Like, these guys deserve to make it, and so I'm not super mad at that. But if Paolo and Franz were healthy, they both would have made it for sure. It's just the lack of games, I guess. Bam Adebayo, you always want to see in the All-Star game just because of how great of a player he is, and he's on a really good team. He's just not been as efficient this year offensively and not scoring as much, but still maybe the most versatile defender in the league. Always going to have a case there, especially if the Heat are in contention, which they are for the playoffs. Jalen Johnson, another player that I think would have made it if he didn't, unfortunately tear his labrum out for the season, but the year he was having was absolutely incredible. I've talked about him so much on the channel. He's one of my favorite young players in the league, and this year another player that just totally broke out as a star. Wishing him well, and get well soon, Jaylen. Love watching you, man, and just such a great player on a lot of levels, and I think he is going to be a superstar pretty soon. And there's some other guys we could talk about. Scotty Barnes, what a great year he's had for a front court guy, but at the end of the day, another just kind of lackluster team here in the Raptors. But that's pretty much it for the snubs on the East. Now on the Western Reserve, I think there's one guy that I definitely wanted to see make it, and that is Norman Powell. They decided decided to go with James Harden instead. I get it. For one, he's James Harden. He's playing really good basketball, probably the best player on the Clippers, who are really good this year. But Norman Powell is 1B with Harden. The way he's scoring the ball and how efficient he's been. He's played 40 games. That's not the issue. You know, he's averaging 24 points per game on ridiculously good efficiency, 50% from the field, 44% from three on 8 attempts per game. The way he's stepped up as that number 2 option, number 1 option scoring wise for the Clippers, who are, again, a really good team in the West. Without Kawhi Leonard, without Paul George, you know, this is just a player who I really wanted to make the team, and I think his numbers back it up and everything else backs it up, but I get they went with Harden instead. They had to put a Clipper there, and I get it, but would have really liked to see Norman Powell. He was the guy I was really hoping would make it, who I think might be the biggest snub in the West. Of course, you have Jamal Murray, who's had a great year, statistically at least, for the Nuggets. Luka, you know, didn't play enough games. I believe that was the reason they didn't go with Luka, because otherwise he certainly would have made it with the year he's had. Kyrie Irving, I definitely think has a really good case, you know, especially over a guy like Harden, but you know, the Clippers have been better than the Mavs, but Kyrie has been Kyrie, you know, this year, 48% from the field, 42% from 3 on 7 attempts, and 90% from the line, while averaging 5 assists per game on 2.5 turnovers. Like, Kyrie has a really, really great case to make the All-Star team. You know, definitely one of the bigger snubs. Ja Morant, I don't think he's played enough games, 28 games played, not going to get it done for an All-Star, but, you know, probably could have made it if he was healthy. Devin Booker, you know, again, the West is just so loaded, it's hard to even pick these rosters. You know, 26 points per game and 7 assists per game. Hasn't shot the ball up to his efficient, you know, incredibly efficient standards this year. That's probably part of the problem. Domantas Sabonis has had a great year statistically, and so has De'Aaron Fox, and so they are 2 guys that I definitely think should have been in the conversation. Some other ones that I think, you know, I just wanted to mention for the West, you know, there's so many snubs, and, you know, calling it a snub is kind of interesting because, you know, again, all these guys deserve to make it, so I don't know that you can really say it's a snub, but someone like Norman Powell, someone like, you know, Kyrie Irving, I think you can use an argument for that because they were just so great this year and so close to making it, but a lot of it's team success and, you know, production, and so I guess, you know, they factored in both of those things, and popularity, you know, that does factor in for sure. Someone like Jalen Green, I think, could have gotten votes for sure. I mean, he's not been super efficient, but he's the leading scorer on the 2nd best record team in the West, and so certainly you have to factor that in. Julius Randle, someone that could have gotten votes for sure. Obviously Rudy Gobert, but at the end of the day, I think that's pretty much it for the snubs on the Western Conference. Let me know down in the comment section, do you agree with these picks? Who should have made the All-Star team that didn't, and who should they replace? Again, I think there's good conversations around this stuff. I don't think it's necessarily toxic to talk about snubs, but I think it can get toxic when people just push their favorite player over players that deserve to make it. Like, again, I can hear a case for a lot of the guys I said, but I do think it's, you know, you kind of discredit certain players that did make it when you start saying that they're trash and, you know, compared to this guy. And so anyway, let me know down in the comment section either way, who should have made it over who. Do you agree with the All-Star? I actually think they did a much better job this year than in a lot of previous years. Some of the picks, if you know, over the last 5 years have been pretty questionable, you know, and I think they actually have a good system now. It'll be interesting to see the All-Star game, how it pans out this year with the new format. It's going to be like a tournament kind of thing, and so that'll be fun. But hopefully it's better than years past. You know, it's just kind of been falling off a little bit. The All-Star roster, I think, is what's most important because that actually affects these players' lives and their legacies. And so hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to the channel. We'll be uploading stuff like this all of the time. And leave a like on the video if you did enjoy it. Again, comment all your thoughts down below. I'd love to hear the feedback from you guys. I'm trying to build this community into something special, and I need your guys' help in the comments, on the like button, and on the subscribe total. And we're on the road to 15K. So also subscribe to my other 2 channels. Links are down in the description. Dhave2K, where we post 2K content over there. Play now online. Could be using your favorite team next video. And subscribe to my 3rd channel, Dhave the Third, where I'm going to be posting another video game, which I haven't announced yet, but I actually have a lot of recordings for that series. And so please subscribe if you're into this channel. It's, you know, different content, but it is still the same person behind it. It's a one-man show, folks. And my thumbnail designer, shout out to Kyler. Love that guy. Hopefully you guys have a fantastic rest of your day today. Let me know all that stuff in the comments. And hopefully if you want to support all those things I said, this has been the All-Star rosters for 2025, snubs, and recap and review. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I will see you guys in the next one. This is your boy D-Haven. As always, peace.